So, is it possible to overeat once you've dropped all of the bad carbohydrates, including potatoes, pasta, bread, and rice? Any grains, basically, you want to avoid. Rice, of course, is a grain. Oats is a grain, or are a grain, rather. Get it grammatically correct. Any kind of whole wheat, basically any kind of a bread product. Once you've dropped those, and so eating then the stuff that's left, is it possible to overeat? And the answer for me is no, it's not. I've been, I've dropped the carbohydrates about a month and a half ago, and I'm continuing with this, with this diet where I've dropped those carbohydrates, and I'm finding that, of course, what's left is everything else: meats, salads. A lot of different vegetables are fine as long as they're true vegetables. And what I'm finding is that it's really impossible for me to overeat, and so I'm not counting calories at all. I'm simply eating basically non-carbohydrate foods, or foods such as vegetables that are very low in carbohydrates. And so I find that when I do, when I'm eating, at some point, I get a very clear, full signal. I'm full, can't eat, time to quit, stop eating. That signal comes through very loud and clear, and I just have to stop. So, what have I been eating? Usually, like for a breakfast type of meal, and usually I'll eat 2 times a day, earlier in the day and then maybe later in the evening. And so, typically, like a breakfast type of meal, I'll have either eggs or an omelet, and usually the omelet has either like a ham and cheese omelet, or so-called meat lovers omelet, where they may put in ham as well as bacon, or even some kind of beef steak. And cheese is okay as long as it's real cheese. And and they may throw a few little vegetables in there as well, depending on how they've made the omelet. And then maybe some sliced tomatoes. Now, of course, I'm eating typically in restaurants, and they're not really super flexible as to the sides that they'll allow if you've got a breakfast meal as opposed to more like a dinner type meal. And so hopefully, as more people are eating low carbohydrate, hopefully some of these restaurants will become a little bit more flexible in what they, the substitutions that they might allow. There's things like cottage cheese, that's really no good. Most cottage cheese that you're going to get in a restaurant, you don't want that, because it's got too many carbohydrates in it. And of course, if you're buying it at the grocery store, look at the label, and it'll spell it right out for you, at least in the United States. Yogurt is another thing you want to avoid like the plague. Virtually all of those have added sugars. Don't want that. So, so this evening I went to a buffet, and I got started out with a salad, and then following that I got some meat, and they had one of the meats that they had was Meatloaf, want to avoid meatloaf. Of course, that's meatloaf is hamburger. The base of it is hamburger, and then they put a bunch of bread in there, mix a bunch of bread in there to kind of, as filler for the meatloaf, and then they, may pour it full of ketchup. Ketchup is full of sugar, so I avoided that. They had fried chicken. I didn't get the fried chicken because it didn't look all that great. They had some baked chicken, so I got a piece of baked chicken. And then there was some pork. They had some pork there that was not bad. And then also the other thing what was the other thing I got? So I got the baked chicken and the pork. Oh, and then they had some fish. And the fish was lightly breaded, and so I got a piece of that fish. And so those were the three meats that I had. I had, a salad, and it wasn't a huge salad. And then, with the ranch dressing. And then after that, I got the plate with those three meats on it. And it was towards the end, and I didn't have a huge amount of meat, but towards the end, I was kind of getting full. And I won't eat again. I'm feeling full right now. I won't eat again until sometime probably late tomorrow morning. So I'm finding that without carbohydrates, but getting rid of those carbohydrates, I just can't, physically I just can't eat. Now I could force myself to eat. Let's say go back and try to get more meat or whatever, but I'm finding once my body has given me the signal that I'm full, then I have to stop. And so that's what I do. So but with carbohydrates, of course, it's a different story. Carbohydrates never tell your body that you're full. And so that's why you can keep eating. If you're eating carbohydrates with your meal, you can just go back and maybe get dessert or something else, and you still don't have that full signal. And then, maybe 30 minutes later, then you're going to feel like, oh my God, I'm bloated, I'm going to blow up. And of course, then it's too late. So it's been my experience without the carbohydrates in my diet, I can eat until I'm full, and I just, the signal is loud and clear, hey, you're full, and I have to stop. So that's one more thing to keep in mind, a benefit of dropping the carbohydrates from your diet.